There's three major ways that mental illness can be caused, and the first is biological, and those factors are genetics, infections, brain defects or injuries, prenatal damage, substance abuse, or nutrition or toxins. And it can be a mix of any of the three or any subcategory within the three main categories. And the second way is psychological, which is childhood trauma, important early loss, like a parent, neglect, or poor ability to relate to others. And the third is environmental, which is death and divorce, dysfunctional family life, feelings of inadequacy or low self-esteem, anxiety, anger, loneliness, changing jobs or schools, and social or cultural expectations, or substance abuse. Most mental illnesses can be treated in some way. None can be cured really. You'll always have that for the rest of your life. But you can treat it in multiple ways, like medication or therapy. And there's a couple ways that they can be detected. Either talking to someone and noticing symptoms, or there's a couple brain scans that can be done to show something wrong with your brain that happens in genetic mental illnesses. Okay, and now we're going to go into a deeper look at different mental disorders. And the first is schizophrenia, which is a mental illness. The symptoms are delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, disorganized or chaotic behavior, and emotional flatness. And symptoms can range from being highly shown in one to not really shown, or different symptoms can show in different people. And it's usually shown through the ages of 16 and 30 is when it's first recognized. What's affected in the brain is reduced activity in the front region of the brain and hypofrontality, which is low blood flow to the front of your brain. So it just causes them to just think differently, kind of, and just have a different mental process than a normal brain would have. The treatment is medication and psychosocial therapy. And a real-world example is Vincent van Gogh, who had hallucinations, got sick a lot. He even cut off his own ear. Another mental illness is psychopathy, when you are a psychopath. And it's caused by genetics. And the brain is different in a psychopath because there's significantly less gray matter in the anterior-rostral prefrontal cortex, which is like the area that is associated with empathy and helps you like relate to others, like kind of a caring thing, which they don't really have that much of, so they can't really relate to people. The symptoms are antisocial behavior, inequity-motivated antisocial behavior, pathological egocentricity, incapability for real love and attachment, general lack of deep and lasting emotions, and it can be shown anytime. It is untreatable, and a real-world example is Ted Bundy, who was a serial killer. Another example of a mental illness is autism. It's caused by genetics, and the cerebellum is the large part of the brain responsible for motor skill use that also plays a part in speech and interaction, and it's underdeveloped in autistic people, so sometimes, well, it depends on how severe the cause is, but sometimes they can't really speak well. Again, they don't relate to others well. Some symptoms are lack of social interaction and relationships, lack of verbal and nonverbal communication skills, limited interactions or activities or play, which is mostly in children. An autistic child usually doesn't talk to other children or really want to play in that imagination sort of world that most children have. And it's shown anytime in childhood. It can be medicated and behavioral treatments to help. And we don't really know exactly why it's caused, but it's thought it's genetics. And it was thought that Albert Einstein was autistic, mildly, but you can't exactly prove autism because the cause isn't for sure known scientifically. Another example is anxiety disorders, and it's caused by genetics. Well, it can be caused by multiple reasons, and one is genetics, the deregulation of brain chemistry, and it can also be caused environmentally by stress, upbringing, life experiences, parenting, trauma, change, abuse, or neglect. What's affected in the brain is neurotransmitters in the brain are at abnormal levels. So they're higher and more receptive, so the brain can't really handle it, so they feel that anxious all the time and kind of always think something's going to happen. And the symptoms are constantly tense, worried or on edge, and so much anxiety that it interferes with daily responsibilities like going to school or work or having social interactions. It's usually shown in adolescence, unless it's caused environmentally, then it's shown after the event. It can be treated by medication, behavioral therapy, and lifestyle changes, like sometimes diet can help, sometimes just changing your environment can help. And a real-world example is Johnny Depp, who's mostly has social anxiety. He gets nervous around people, and he can't be in big crowds or feel pressured. Another example is phobias, and the symptoms are being scared of irrational things. It's caused mostly by life experiences, but it can also be caused by genetics. And if it were to be caused by genetics, it would be the tiny brain structure called the amygdala that keeps track of experiences that triggers strong emotions. So if you had an experience that triggered a really strong emotion, like extreme fear, then that little part of your brain would remember it, and then it would make you have a phobia for the rest of your life. It's shown anytime after the traumatizing event, or if it's genetic, it can be shown anytime in childhood. Some treatments are beta blockers, antidepressants, sedatives, and behavioral therapy. A world example is David Beckham, who has ataxophobia, which is fear of disorganization. He has to have all the furniture in his house match all his clothing, so it's pretty intense. It's not just normal OCD. Okay, so for this activity, students will look at real-life scenarios and decide what mental disorder is had by each patient. Okay, scenario 1. Tyler is a normal guy. He works, has a wife, and 2 kids. Today, he got a great job offer. It has a pay raise, was closer to home, and the job was exactly what he wanted to do. But he had to turn it down because it was on the 11th floor of a new office building. This was much too high for him to feel comfortable working in every day, so he had to pass up on this great opportunity. What mental illness do you think this is? Phobias, correct. Okay. Next one, scenario 2. Sally goes to high school like regular kids, but lately she's feeling very indifferent and unattached to the things she usually does. She's having a lot of anxiety and easily getting angry. She's coming to school less and less and dropping activities she usually does. Her friends try and talk to her, but she seems very disinterested, stops speech in the middle of a sentence, and seems like she's always thinking about something and cannot clearly articulate fluent thoughts. She's now having delusions, hallucinations, and thinking someone is talking to her. She's seeing them and hearing them as well. What mental illness is this? Raise your hand. Savannah.